In recent IndyCar history, there haven't been many Swiss drivers. In fact, there's only been 3 Swiss IndyCar drivers since 2000. The latest of these is Simone Di Silvestro, while the earliest was Joel Camathias. Joel came from a racing family, being the son of Romeo Camathias, who raced in touring and GT cars, and being the great-nephew of Florian Camathias, a motorcycle and sidecar racer in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Joel had found some decent success in karting, but entering 2003, he hadn't achieved much in cars. After a fairly quiet 2002 season, Joel made a big leap. He'd now switched his attention to racing in the US, with his biggest campaign being in kart. And in this video, I want to take a closer look at his time in the series. Today, I tell the story of Joel Camathias' kart career. He would drive for Dale Coyne Racing this year, nestled firmly in what I call Dale Coyne's gold-digging phase. Joel would be sponsored by his hometown of Lugano, Switzerland, and would have 4 teammates in just 7 races. At the first race of the 2003 season, Joel would be partnered up with fellow rookie Roberto Gonzalez, and would out-qualify his teammate by 0.7 of a second. And while that is an achievement, both of them were over 3 seconds off of pole sitter Sebastian Bourdais. While Bourdais' pole time was a 1 minute .9, Joel was at a 1 minute 4.2, while Gonzalez was at a 1 minute 4.9. As such, Joel would line up in 17th, starting only ahead of his teammate and Rodolfo Levin. But in the chaotic race that ensued the next day, where only 12 cars would see the checkered flag, Joel would come home in a somewhat impressive 9th, his best ever IndyCar finish. After St. Pete, Gonzalez would be replaced by Alex Young, whose brief time in the series has been discussed at length on this channel before. Round 2 in Monterrey, Mexico was a pretty miserable affair for Camathias, as he'd qualified last, nearly a second off of Young, and nearly 4.5 seconds off of the pole. As for the race itself, he would finish 11th, 2 spots behind teammate Young, who got his best finish in his first start. It would also be the only race that Alex finished in his brief time in the series. Long Beach was yet another bad weekend, as after qualifying for the race in 18th, only ahead of his teammate, he would finish 14th, last of the cars to see the checkered flag. Brands Hatch was the 4th race of the year, and would be the first IndyCar race at Brands Hatch since 1978. But for Joel at least, this race held a lot more meaning than just being another race. In my intro, I briefly mentioned his great-uncle Florian. Florian was a very talented racer, winning multiple races throughout his career, including a win at the 1963 Isle of Man TT, arguably his crowning achievement. But about 20 years after his professional career began, tragedy struck. On October 15th, 1965, there was a sidecar race at Brands Hatch. Florian and his passenger Frank Ducret had fallen back to 3rd place when on lap 7, the duo crashed. It would later be concluded that a botched welding job on his BMW's front fork failed, causing the accident. Florian and Frank were rushed to the hospital, where Florian later passed away. Taking that tragedy into consideration, it made what would end up being a pretty bad weekend from a results perspective even worse. Joel would qualify for the race in 18th, half a second off of his teammate. However, unlike his teammate who crashed out of the race, Joel would actually finish, albeit in 13th. His oval debut at the Lassett's Ring would see his worst finish of the 2003 season, as Joel started 18th and was the last of the finishers in 16th. Milwaukee was also a bad weekend, with Camathias starting last and crashing on lap 150. After finishing 13th in race 7 at Laguna Seca, Joel Camathias would never race in kart again. There really isn't much to talk about in reference to Joel's time in the series. He was a rookie in a bad car, simple as that. There'd be more to talk about if he raced in more competitive equipment, but because he was stuck with Dale Coyne for all of his starts, who were by far the worst team in kart at the time, there's just not much to discuss. It's like taking a test in a language you don't speak with a bag over your head. You can't really say how his performances were because there just isn't much to draw off of. You can't really call his time in the series good or bad, but a word I'd use to describe it would be forgettable. How do you think his time was in the series? I would love to hear your thoughts in a comment down below. Thank you for watching, and have a great afternoon.